John Solari.
And I'm Karen Kondazian.
And today we have a special guest. Karen, I'm so happy that you said yes. I've been trying to get you on the show for so long.
Well, I'm so glad to be here.
Karen is not only a gift from the Actor Studio as a lifetime member, she's a writer. And your name's in your book. Before we get going, what I really want to talk about is, why did you become an actor?
I became an actor because at 8 years old, I was chosen to be one of the obnoxious children on the Art Linkletter show. And when I got on the air, I realized that I could miss school, and they gave me all the free grilled cheese sandwiches and orange sherbet I wanted. And I thought, oh my God, this is exactly the life for me. I want to be an actress because I get to miss school, get all the free orange sherbet and grilled cheese sandwiches. My mommy is here and she's laughing. I haven't seen her laugh too often. And everybody's applauding me. And so I thought, okay, so 8 years old, I made the decision. And it's very, very unusual. I never gave it up. I very gratefully got to go to school in London, London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, study acting there in the perfect time when it was the time of the Beatles, and I mean, it was an amazing time just to be in London, let alone having the great training I had. I was there with Stacy Keach and Andy Robinson, and a lot of really extraordinary actors were in our class. I even dated King Hussein of Jordan at that time. He was divorcing Princess Muna, who was his first wife. And I met his brother Hassan, and his brother introduced me to King Hussein. So I didn't think it was unusual. I thought all girls got to date kings, you know. But it was really a great time. That was my long answer for...
But it's a wonderful answer. And one of the things I left out, you were born one of the few outside of Anna Mangani, born to play Tennessee Williams.
Oh, thank you.
No, you are. I mean, still, it's the first time I laid eyes on you. You have that raw, sexual, that Anna had. I mean, there's nobody like you.
I'm going to have him be my agent, huh?
Well,
or PR person.
But, I mean, really, what attracted you to Tennessee Williams?
Well, first of all, I am a dash Italian, Colonna, on my mother's side, my grandmother actually. So you're right. I don't know if you knew that I have a little Italian in me. I'm Armenian. IAN is Armenian, my father, and there's some Italian on my mother's side. So anyway, to answer your question, I've always loved Williams, as all actors do, because they're such complicated, fascinating, flawed people. You know, every one of Williams' women have a really wounded child who lives inside. And so... I always thought these women were him. Yes, you're exactly right. They're exactly right. That's why all his men seem to be the same. You know, they're all kind of Stanley Kowalski or Chance Waynes. They're all kind of macho guys. But the women, you're absolutely on the nose. He was expressing himself through the women. And, excuse me, I have a little allergy. Why I fell in love with Williams was, first of all, I did Laura in the Glass Menagerie in high school. And then in summer stock I did Amanda. And then suddenly, I came to LA, and I was very shy and didn't have an agent yet, and I got very ill, almost died. My parents gave me some money and said, I had just gotten into the Actor Studio. And Lee Strasberg had, you know, encouraged me to do Williams. He felt that I had the heart for it. Yeah, I could see it right away, looking at you, I mean. My parents gave me this money, and they said, you know, Lee Strasberg, I had done a scene from Rose Tattoo for Lee Strasberg. And Lee said to me, Karen, you know, you really should do this role. I never recommend people to do things, but do it sometime. Well, after my parents gave me the money, I decided I would produce it and do it. And not knowing you're supposed to get the rights to plays, I didn't know anything. Anyway, the bottom line is it all worked out. I did get the rights. I produced it, cast it, got it at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. At that time, it was, you know, you could rent it. And we did this production. Now, while we got incredible reviews, and all of a sudden, a friend of mine who just passed away, Paul Ryan, said to me, what do you want for your birthday? And I teasingly said, oh, Tennessee Williams to come see Rose Tattoo. Of course I was teasing. And he said, oh, okay. Well, he did interviews on television. He interviewed a lot of famous people. So he had a lot of access to different people. So the next thing I knew, he said to me, guess who's coming for your birthday, not on your birthday, but for your birthday? And I said, who? He said, Tennessee Williams. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, Williams did come with a lot of interesting people, knew he was going to be there. So a young man named Christopher Reeve, who was just going to open in a movie called Superman, was there. And Richard Brooks, who directed Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the film, had never met Williams. He said it was the first time, it was that evening.
Really?
I mean, he directed the film, you would have thought he would have. Anyway, it was one of those evenings where it literally changed my life, because I was this shy kind of girl who was not doing very well with her life or career. And I was looking around the room and I said to myself, not in an egotistical way, but, you know, it's interesting. Because of my doing this play, my putting all of this together, all of these people are in this room together, including Tennessee Williams. We're all here together because of me. And again, I didn't mean that egotistically. I meant it as a, like, put your arms around life. You know, life is there for us to try to make something of it, not just hide behind a rock, which is what I had been doing. So that evening changed me, and I became friends with Williams. He liked me. Oh, I have to tell you a funny story. Actually, yes.
From here, go ahead.
So I'm going to just say that I actually had met Williams one evening before he came to see my play, and that was I was nominated for the Drama Critics Circle Award in LA. The awards had not yet happened, and so I was invited to a party, a Drama Critics Circle party. And there was Williams sitting across the table. And I had a little cleavage in my, you know, I had a dress that had a little cleavage. And he kept staring across the table at my cleavage. Now I knew Mr. Williams was gay, so I didn't understand why he was looking at my cleavage. Anyway.
In envy.
Well, you're very close. So all of a sudden we're introduced. And he looks at me and he looks down at my breast and he said, "Can I touch them?" And I said, yes. And so he very gentlemanly put his hands on my breast. And then all of a sudden he looked at me and he said, "Darling, I'll take them, gift wrapped." And that was the beginning of kind of our friendship. I mean, yes, he came to see the play, and that's when it really started. But he was a hoot. And so that's, you know, because of Williams, he said to me, "You can have the rights to all my plays, I'll give them to you, as long as I'm alive." So he gave me the rights to Sweet Bird of Youth, and a young man came in. I mean, there were hundreds of actors trying to get Chance Wayne, the role of Chance Wayne. And one day, a friend of mine, David Galligan, said, "You know, there's this great actor, and nobody knows him yet, but I think he's going to be a star, and he should come and audition." So this young man came and auditioned, and his name was Ed Harris, and he got the role. He was amazing, and his career started. I mean, a lot of people came to see him, and he had that interesting thing that Williams' characters have to have, and very few men can do it, and that is sexy but dangerous.
Dangerous, yes.
You know, a lot of men are sexy, or they're dangerous, but not the combination.
I played that part.
And you played Chance,
Yes.
Dance is a great
Also, my
one.
first play I did was Orpheus Descending.
Oh my God, of
And
course.
that was the first play I did in
I did that finally at the Fountain Theater with
Right.
Simon Levy. You know, the Fountain actually was my first play there. But anyway, you asked that some long answer to
No,
your
please,
question.
no, that's wonderful.
You know.
What was it like? And what was the rehearsal like with you and Ed? And I mean, you know, Actors Studio, they always. What was it like? Let's find out if you remember what the rehearsals were like.
Remember. Ed is one of those actors that you never know. He's very unpredictable. He taught me kind of that. What I mean is, to work with him, you had to be unpredictable. Because he'd get, he never said this to me, it was just my instincts.
Right.
That, he'd get bored if you were just, and so there we were on stage, we never knew what each other were going to do. And that's something that was the first time. I had been one of those actors where, you hit your mark and you say your line in the same way over and over. That's how it was taught in college, and I didn't know any different. And Ed kind of, without realizing it, gave me the lesson of, what Lee was trying to teach us, which is what's going, I don't mean that you do things that are so outrageous the poor actors on stage, or
right.
They don't know what you're going to do next. I still always hit my marks. I always say my lines, but you don't know what's going to happen. And so I remember once on stage during a performance, I have to tell you this, and then I'll come back. Clyde Ventura, the great Clyde Ventura, directed it. He's gone now.
Yes.
And anyway, he had the opening of Princess is lying in bed having a nightmare, and Chance Wayne is in the shower, taking a shower. Well, the shower door was open, and Clyde did this thing where steam was coming out of the bathroom, and out walked a naked, frontal nudity, Ed Harris. Now, I'm going to say this. God forbid Ed, well, I guess he wouldn't mind. Ed Harris is very well made. So every night, there would be this in the audience. You'd hear a male voice say, "Get up." And then you'd hear a female voice go, "No, I want to stay." "Get up." And then there'd be this little tussle, and then we were at the Jean Darnarski Theater, which had that kind of school door closing of doors. You'd hear this clang, and they were out every night. Somebody was leaving, because it was 1980, and there was there was no male nudity on stage. So
whose idea was that?
Clyde's.
Clyde? I was going to say, it sounds something like Clyde would do.
Yes. And, one of the things Ed and I did, and we've never betrayed each other, never. We had a little improv together. Clyde wasn't even there. And we told each other a secret that nobody else knew. And we promised we would never ever tell anybody about that secret. So he told me a secret, I told him a secret. And, it was a wonderful thing to act with.
Where did that come from?
Me, I actually came up with that idea.
Why?
Because, I don't know, I think maybe it was something Lee might have said, not an exercise, but Lee gave me the idea, kind of.
Okay, that's what I meant.
And it was an interesting bonding that we had as a result. We could look into each other's eyes and really know each other. And, but he was amazing to work with. I remember what I was going to say. I'm going to now go back to what I was talking about. This one night, I saw him about a year ago, and I said to him, do you remember that incident? And I explained. He says, "Yes, I do." All of a sudden, I must have done or said something on stage that pissed him off. This is in front of an audience. He grabbed me around the neck, pushed me against this wall of the set, and he was like strangulating me. And I'm going, "Chance, stop it, you're hurting me," And he stopped. But he lost it for a minute. And to this day, I still don't know what made him angry. I asked him later, and he wouldn't talk to me for like a day or two. And then he was fine. But I did something on stage. I don't know if it was an intimation of, I don't know. Someday I'll ask him.
So a real moment happened on stage.
Oh, and another real moment happened where at the end of the play, you know, they sit together and she says, come with me, Chance, come,
Right.
come. She's going to save his life.
Right.
And he doesn't go. And they say goodbye together. The closing night, David Galligan was there, and he said, my friend, who's a great director, said, my God, the ending was so amazing, because we really said goodbye to each other on stage. You know, we knew it was the last time we'd be doing this amazing experience, having this experience together. I have a couple of photographs of us together. I'll send them to you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
It's when I did it, I met the real princess.
Oh, Princess Cosmonopolis?
She came to see me.
Oh my God, who he based it on?
Yes.
Oh.
And because Renata Manheim, who was my acting coach, we did it in the theater in New York on LaGuardia Place. And after the performance, she was introduced to me.
Oh my God, what was she like?
She was very quiet, very, you know.
Oh, not at all theatrical.
No, very, very, I would say, like my friend in the Dakota, very upscale.
Right,
you know,
right. Oh, that's interesting.
You know,
because,
very,
you know, of course, in the play, she's very theatrical. You know, she's very like.
I think she was the total opposite. You would never.
Oh my God.
When you say it now, well, I remember this very regal. That's that the word.
Yes.
Woman.
Oh, that's
And,
interesting. Wow.
And she just kept looking at me like, I could get that feeling. You know, there was that sexual feeling between it.
Wow.
You know.
Yes.
I mean, I was a young stud then in New York.
Yes, of course. Oh,
Acting was all about that.
Do you have a picture of that? I'd love to see
I know.
it.
I wish it. You know, it wasn't the days of cameras like.
No, I know. I mean, I'm just lucky that I have photographs of Rose Tattoo and Sweet Bird, because that was Rose Tattoo was 79, 80, and Sweet Bird was 80, and then later Williams gave me the rights to Vous Carré, the West Coast premiere rights to Vous Carré. Which nobody really knows. It's one of his lesser plays. But it's kind of an interesting play, and he was going to come see it, and I had this idea for him to do the opening monologue as Tennessee's voice.
Really?
You know, in the dark, you'd hear Williams saying this monologue, and then the lights would come up, and the play would begin. And so. This is in the days, you know, there was no computers or anything like that. And 1980, we're like just beginning. So I was going to fly to New York, it was a good chance to see him, and tape him, you know, do this thing with him. So I had my reservation, everything, it was all arranged. 3 days before I was to leave, he died.
That was in, I'm trying to remember the year.
1983.
Yeah, because I had met him a few years earlier.
Yeah,
in
he
New
died
York,
in 83.
with my friend from the Dakota, you know, and
anyway, but it would have been great to have this beautiful piece of his voice, you know, doing this monologue, his own monologue.
So, what a wonderful idea that you have there in doing that.
Well, Vous Carré has a little bit of, he's older now, but it's Tom in Glass Menagerie, now in New Orleans, trying to find he's not sure if he's gay or not gay, and he's having an affair with a man in this boarding house. So it's a monologue that begins the play of talking about this. Imagine to hear the mature Williams saying the monologue, and then to see it, you know, on stage. Anyway.
Well, it could still be done with someone else.
But I mean, to have, we did have someone else. We had the young boy who was Williams do it finally.
Yes.
But imagine to hear Mr. Williams
his own
do
voice.
it himself.
Yes.
I know. He was a character, a lovely man.
That he was.
I know. So yeah, and.
Well, yeah, I think you had to be if you were gay like that, and such a writer, like Truman Capote and all them. They were just so outrageous because it wasn't really accepted. Right. Outside of the theater.
No, not until I think it was on the air. I can't remember which, who was the moderator, that he came out on the air. He was very drunk, and he sat down, and he's, you know, he talked about it.
Yeah.
And I think people were very shocked. I
Yeah.
mean, this is still coming out of the 50s, even though the 60s were, you know, wild and sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right.
It was still had that, the older people had the 50s mentality,
Right.
which was
That's right.
gay. Oh, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
that you were.
It was like Rock Hudson. Everybody knew, but nobody said it.
Yes. Well,
Liberace, this
the public
perfect
didn't-
example.
The public didn't know it.
Right.
Didn't know
Didn't
about
know
Rock
it.
Hudson, but everybody in the business knew.
Yeah, like Liberace. But even the public knew that.
Well, the public, but because he had that kind of
Yeah.
way about him, he made people laugh, so they would kind of whisper, you know, you think maybe,
Yeah.
you think maybe, or do you
Yeah.
think he's just pretending?
Yeah.
Anyway, I know.
Do you remember your scene for the Actors Studio?
Yes. You mean the scene I auditioned with, or the rose tattoo scene?
No, the audition with.
Yes.
And besides, why did you go there? Why did you want to go to Actors Studio?
Oh my God. I was 13 years old in New York City with my mom and stepdad. I had been reading theater art magazines since I was 11 or 12. Remember, at 8 years old, I wanted to be an actress. And so when we went to New York, I had memorized, as though I couldn't look it up on the phone book, 432 West 44th Street. And I was going to go to 432 West, that's of course the Actors Studio. So I dragged my mother there. And there's this person at the desk, big tall man, so it wasn't Lee, a big tall man, and he goes, well, how old are you? 13. He said, darling, go to school, finish high school, finish college, audition, someday, maybe, you know, you'll be a member. Well, he gave me my goal. So I went to high school, I went to college. My parents said if I went to college, they'd give me a little money in New York to see how I would do as an actress. So I did all that, and finally I got up the courage to audition because I was taking his master classes.
Oh,
And, you know, I was studying with
over
him.
at Carnegie Hall?
Yes, with Mr. Strasberg.
Yeah.
And there was a man named Charles Shaw, lovely man who also passed away, huh?
Yes.
Who was
His wife was a casting director.
Yes, Jennifer
And-
Shaw.
Yeah.
And so I happened now to be in LA. I was, you know, I was going to the acting classes in New York, but then I switched to LA and started studying here with him. Charles Shaw and Jennifer were here. Charles said, I'll audition with you. He was already a member. So we did, oh God, what was the play? It was Snow Angel. Snow Angel. I played the prostitute in it. And Tennessee, Mr. Strasberg, Lee, used to say to me all the time, Karen, because I was shy, you have to start rolling around in the dirt kind of roles. You played too many queens in England. You know, that's all I did was Shakespeare in England. So I did this prostitute. And and Lee was there, and I remember walking in that day onto the stage. I fiercely looked into the blackness of the auditionees, and I did it. And then all of a sudden, we were all to go to Theodore's restaurant. That was a ritual. You auditioned for the Actors Studio, and then you'd go to Theodore's.
Yes.
And the phone would ring. And it did, and they called for me. They said, Karen, you come. I went, and Lee said, congratulations, you're a member of the Actors Studio.
Wow.
And then somebody else, there were 3 of us, there was a group of like 20 people, and there were 3 of us who were called to the phone, congratulated. And the rest are just sitting there, and I mean, people were weeping at the table, sobbing. It was one of the worst rejections that a person could have. And then that night, Lee and Anna came to Theodore's and walked around the table and gave everybody a quick critique, like, why did you choose that scene? That wasn't the right partner. You know, you need to work on blah, blah, blah. And he went around the whole 20 people, or 15, whatever it was, and then he came to me. And he said, congratulations again, but you know what you need to work on? What, Lee? He said, you're wonderful at emotions. You don't have to, you know, deal with sense memory or anything like that. What you have to do is, he said, you have to learn to have just a conversation. Just a simple conversation, back and forth, without emotion, without any kind of carrying on, just a simple Marty, like,
Right.
what do you want to do tonight, Marty?
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you want to do, Marty? That kind of thing. So, you know, even though I got in, you know, he even gave me a little critique. Yeah, that was a great night. That was in 74. I got into the studio in 74.
Unbelievable.
So Lee was the one, and then I did, as I said, a scene from Rosette 2. And when I finished the scene with Robert Vahara, crazy Robert Vahara, who was wonderful in the scene, wonderful. The audience applauded, the actor studio applauded, the members
They're not
applauded.
supposed to, we know that.
So he
No,
turns
I'm telling that to
around,
the
he
audience.
turns around, Lee turns around and looks at everybody and said, this is not a place to applaud. We're not here to entertain each other. Do not applaud. But I understand why you did it. He looked at me and he said, I have no notes. You see this? I'm going to give it to you later. You have no notes.
Right.
And my only advice is you need to do this play with Mr. Vahara. He didn't call me, he said Robert, Bob. And he said, do this play. So that's what gave me the...
What did it feel like then? Can you remember the feelings you had going on inside you when Lee told you?
I thought I was dreaming.
Is it almost, I remember once Catherine Carlin from the Actors Studio years ago told me when I got in, she says, that's better than winning an Oscar.
No, I know, because he was so tough.
To become a member, I mean,
Yes,
you know.
to become a member, and then to have, you know, to have him, that was the only time he did that with me. But I'll never, it was, you know, I get even touched now when I think about it. I mean, for those people that are watching this, they don't understand who, yes, you might know who Lee Strasberg, of course, who he is, but unless you knew him and worked for him, he was like an X-ray machine. He could look right through you, as an actor and as a human being. I don't know how he had a gift, that's all. And, you know, people didn't understand why he was so nice to me, because he was nice to me. Because, you know, he loved blonde ladies.
Blonde,
yes. Blonde was his thing. But he was always very nice to me. And one day, somebody came up with a photograph in class. We were sitting during intermission, during a break, and he said, look at this photograph. I said, yes. He said, looks like you, doesn't it? I said, yes. That's Paula as a young woman. You look just like her.
Oh.
That was what it was, is that I looked a bit like Paula. And I guess, you know, he was kind to me as a result.
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me is right. He never yelled at me, thank God. I have one last story about Lee, and that is, first of all, Lee was a character. I don't know if you know this, but that every time he would come to the studio in the summertime, one of the things he loved to do was direct traffic upstairs. He loved to direct cars going into their parking spots, like Woody Allen, you know, in Annie Hall. Nobody hit each other, but it was one of his favorite things to do. And so, you know, he was very funny. And when I was taking classes from him, I remember I had lost the love of my life. I was engaged to him. We were in New York, and he was 25 years older than me. He dropped dead on the streets of New York. His name was Lex Barker. He was Tarzan in the movies.
I'm going to run out of time, so
yes.
What I want to do is, I know you have to go someplace.
Yes.
But you must have me back, And I want the audience love to see this
Oh, well,
incredible.
you're welcome to show. Why don't you turn the camera? I will tell that story about what Lee did for me.
But
after I
we don't
came
have
back.
we
Oh,
just
there-
run
oh,
out.
very- you just ran out. Okay.